Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the AI for Everyone podcast. My name is Harrison Painter, and I am your humble host, and I will be joined shortly by my new co host, Mandy Shekels. On today's show, we are going to actually have an interview, a special guest, so very excited about that. It's going to be John Qualls. He currently serves as the executive director at Blazing Academy, who is, oh, by the way, our sponsor. But John here in April got to spend the entire week in Dubai. It was AI week in Dubai. So we just want to get the kind of download as it's fresh, as he's just off the plane, and see what happened, catch any insights. And I'm pretty excited to hear it. So let's get to the interview. All right. So you just got back from Dubai AI week. We're going to do a longer segment with you later, but I wanted to get your initial thoughts because you literally just landed on the plane.
Yeah, just landed 18 hours, a lot of fun. Definitely a flight, a brutal flight back. Right? But yeah, so it was Dubai AI week, and it was about 15,000 folks in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. So it was in Dubai, but that's close to Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates. And it was a whole week of things around AI, and there was actually a couple of days of kind of conference, about 15,000 folks. So it was pretty. It was amazing to kind of get out of the U.S. echo chamber and to kind of see AI from a global standpoint. One thing that was kind of interesting is that there's probably 15,000 people there, and about 10 Americans, and so that was a little different for me.
That's interesting because it says it showed 180 plus speakers, 150 plus workshops, 15 plus countries. So you were right in the thick of everything, and you're saying there's very few Americans there. That's mind blowing.
Me and about nine others, and I would say most of the ones that were there were probably one of the speakers, right? I think it was about four American speakers, and then me, and then I saw about five folks, which I think were American. But yeah, you want to talk about diversity? It was definitely a melting pot of humanity. It was pretty awesome, actually.
So could people choose which workshops they wanted to go to?
Yeah, they had kind of three stages and some side workshops. So they had a really robust kind of workshop kit that you could kind of pick. They had kind of the main stage, which is in one area, and then they had best way I can say it is the expo stage. So basically, anybody that was in the expo probably got a 15 or 20-minute time on the stage, and the third one was just a series of topics that you could attend. So, and it was a really wide range of topics. It was good, and I sat in probably 15 sessions over those couple of days.
So much to cover, but give us for sake of time right now your three biggest takeaways from that week.
One, as I always like, is Indiana behind? Or are we right where it needs to be, or the U.S.? Where are we at? And I would say that the first thing was um, everybody says AI is big, but they're still trying to find the right use cases. So I still think the space is early and it's maturing, but there's a lot of hype. But still, I saw a lot of the vendors was just normal vendors with AI on it, right? It's like they were riding the gluten-free thing. So that was kind of the first one.
The gold rush.
Yeah, the gold rush, right? It was like, here we are, email AI, right? So I saw a lot of that in the vendor land. So that was one. The second one, consistent theme, was about this, and I'm going to look to you, Harrison, because I think you say this, is this human-centric approach. I must have heard that 15 times from 15 different parties and 15 different situations. So I do think there's where's the human element of this, right? So that's the second one. And then the third one, which actually I think maybe I should have started first with it, is this sense of data governance and data sovereignty was probably the most. It was on the main stage, and it was the most attended one, and people were leaning in really hard. So, and let me pull on that a little bit. Um, when they say data sovereignty, and you got to remember you got all these different companies involved. It is if there's going to be AI and AI data and interaction between my citizens and these AI tools, that I want that to occur. I want the processing to occur in my country, and I don't want any of the, kind of the and I don't want it leaving the country. And so, we've seen safe harbor and other things in Europe, and data privacy. It's always been important, but this sense of sovereignty and actually having kind of like AI, and I think that's indicative of seeing a lot of data centers being built. Uh, as soon as you start talking about any of this, they want to start talking about power, right? So a common theme, but it was the data sovereignty was the reason why it needed to be in our country. And if it's going to be in our country, we need to have a data center. We're going to have a data center. We're going to need the power to power it. So those are kind of the three main things. It's still early and kind of that maturing, that data sovereignty piece, right? I think those are big.
And speaking of power, like we just had, I know you've been gone, but Portugal and Spain have had this big power outage. How do things like that impact the future in a place like the United States or Dubai? I know Dubai is really pushing this. They're I don't know what you call them. Their
There's an
president.
initiative called I'll just call it Dubai 2030 Vision Plan. I'm sure they've got a better name for it, but it is the vision plan for kind of the UAE. To the AI will be a core part of everything there. Like all the government and everything else is very AI centric. Where we're really, in the US, we're kind of dabbling, like, how would we might use that? And they're like, no, no. By 2030, when it comes to providing government services, it will be an AI first mentality, and there's a mandate from the kind of the government, which creates a different sense of urgency and investment, I think, than different than here. We tend, what my observation in the U.S. is, we talk about putting AI in the classroom. They're talking about putting AI in the government, and so I think they're a little bit ahead on that.
So what kind of opportunities did you see over there, since they're so far ahead of us? Where do
Uh,
you think we need to be and where do we need to move? Because obviously they're ahead of us.
well, when I think when you say ahead, they might be ahead of making the decision and putting a date on it per se. But when I say like where their expertise is and things, the prompt engineering is still early, and still training was a big thing, right? Like creating awareness and around use cases and things like that. So if the question really is where's the opportunity, it really boiled down to integration seemed to be the common theme. Like where's the checks being written, might be a way of saying that. And the checks are being written in leveraging AI and integration into existing systems. A lot of times when something new comes along, someone says, hey, I know what we'll do. We'll just wipe the slate clean and start all over, right? That's usually not the reality. So there's a lot of investment in integration and kind of what that vision looks like.
What would you say was the percentage between the kind of tech side of AI and that human centric, or just normal folks, blending it in with their job or their life or whatever? What would you say the percentage balance of that was there?
I kind of want to answer that two ways, but I really think in the business world and associated with the conference, um, I would say it's 1/3 tech and 2/3 training, awareness, and strategy, and like how are we going to capture the moment? The data sovereignty and things like that, policy. It was really probably more emphasis there than the tech, only because I think everyone's still trying to figure out where is the tech use case, right? And I think playing into your human centric is there still how disruptive is it going to be in the workforce? I think in the U.S. we think more disruptive in the workforce. I didn't get that feeling out there. It was how are we going to be more efficient or be more competitive? How can we use it as a differentiator? Um, versus in the U.S., I feel like there's still a caution. So they seem to be more. But that's a great question as far as that ratio. It really was a lot of the other stuff, and the tech was a little smaller. So
And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Zuckerberg just did a interview where he said the average person has about 3 friends, but they have room for 15. And the mission here is to actually create these AI, these virtual friends for people. Now, on one hand, that sounds a little creepy and crazy, But on the other hand, I'm using it right now for a health and wellness program, and it's my coach, it's my mentor, it's my motivator, and I can completely see how that's going to improve all of our lives. Was there any talk of coaching, mentoring, therapy, those type of things with AI?
When it comes to AI literacy and things like that, I actually look for that. Um, I can remember specifically going to the app and looking for that. Zero, zero. Right? I was just really surprised. But that's what when I talk about at the conference. They didn't have anything official. But when you actually started talking to people and they started talking about use cases, that's one of the places they went. And a lot of times they're saying, hey, we're uncovering that people are more apt to talk to an AI piece than they are an actual, because you remove the shame factor, right? And the intent, right? Sometimes, when you're talking to someone from a coaching standpoint, you're like, yeah, let me tell you about my weaknesses. And as a coach, you're trying to gain their trust. And as an individual, you want to feel like you can trust the person and kind of be a little bit vulnerable. But when they're actually talking to, an AI piece, it's almost like they're willing to just jump right into that because there's no judgment on the other side. So I think it's a positive, right? I think what we're going to be challenged with is there's a difference, in my businesses and others, right? You can't say therapy, you have to say coach. Because if you say therapy, well, then there's a whole regulatory piece around that, right? So but I'm seeing. I just talked to a company the other day, and I think there was a company out there saying we can't find any therapists, and we're thinking about using AI to subsidize some of that. So that's going to be another interesting can of worms to see how that gets accepted.
With all the new stuff, all the changes, it's happening so fast with AI. Do you think there's going to be a problem with people finding and companies finding the people to actually do the integrations and to make all this work together? Where are we going to find the people to do all this?
So I had an opportunity to kind of sit in a proposal, and it was a $1 billion proposal that a bank is going to do over the next 3 years. And the number one thing was, where are we going to find the talent? And they were looking at 300 highly trained people, and there was a whole list. It's interesting how they broke it down. It was literally a $10 million presentation. I know what they paid for this type of thing, but it was, we're going to hire 100 from a vendors, and then we're going to triple down on training, and we're going to replace that 100 with 200 internal. So at the end of the day, it's going to be 200 new, but they recognize that they can't find the talent, right? Um, so I think it's a good thing. Now over there, when 76% of your workforce is there on a visa, they're kind of tapping into the world for that. When I think about the U.S.'s visa debacle or immigration, however we figure out what that is, I think you're going to see, we're going to have to figure out how to tap into that same pool, because it's going to get snarfed up uh, by people who are going to bring those folks in. So you're either going to have to bring it in, or you're going to have to build it.
So, for all these kids that are, looking for something to do, what do they study? How are they going to become an AI expert and become AI talent?
Yeah, there actually was an article in the Wall Street Journal, I want to say last week, about prompt engineering. So 2 years ago, we really felt that prompt engineering is going to be the new job, and this is where I feel, at least from a Blazing standpoint, I think we're listening closely, and we've really kind of focused on AI specialist, and that is, it's someone who knows their job plus AI is going to be the killer job. But just coming in saying, I just know prompt engineering, that generalist, I don't think that's over 2 years it hasn't panned out. I think it really is going to be knowing your job plus AI. So I think for these kids, answering that question is, you need to discover what that curiosity is, and what that career path is going to go. But do know that you're going to have to put AI on top of it. People always say, "Hey, AI is going to come in and take my job," and it's not like smoke that sneaks under the door and hits you over with a hammer. It's going to be someone who knows your job and can use AI to be more proficient, more productive with AI. And so I think they need to, I see the U.S. is saying, "Hey, we're putting AI." You got China putting it in at the sixth grade level or 6-year-olds. But yeah, I think we should be putting that prompt engineering and AI in at that high school level and all the way up. So
I think it's interesting. I always talk about the AI has all the knowledge in the world, but the humans bring the wisdom in. And I think kind of to answer Mandy's question, like that wisdom still has to be there, that expertise, that whatever AI is going to replace those mundane jobs that everybody hates, right? The little data entry, the cubicle jobs that we always talk about are just these drone jobs that typically people aren't very happy working in. But if you're bringing problem solving skills, critical thinking, all those things to the table, you're going to have a superpower with AI and you're really going to be in demand. And I think that's a big reason why at Blazing Academy, we talk about soft skills, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and how you bring all of that to the table. So it's nice to hear that Dubai and your experience there is kind of solidifying everything that we're doing here.
I had a workshop that I did when I was out there with a 2,600 person firm doing business in 10 countries. And I'll admit, if I could be a little vulnerable, I wasn't sure if my workshop was going to play there. I was concerned about cultural alignment, and I mean, I was sweating how that was going to go. But when I got in there, it's the same stuff, right? We talk about COI, right? Communicate and orchestrate your intentions. AI is not going to bring judgment. It's not going to bring wisdom. You still have to orchestrate it. It is empowering you. It's amplifying you. You are the. It's a tool, and empower. All that stuff resonated with them. It was actually pretty great because it was supposed to be 15 people. It ended up being 77 people. So I didn't see that coming. But it was the entire C-suite of that group, and they were no further along than the executive groups that we've run into here in the States. So that's encouraged to me that we're encouraging that that it's still a little bit early, and I think that our message is accurate and relevant right now. So
I know we're coming at the end here of our time, but the one thing we're going to come back and we're going to bring you on and talk about this again in a week or two after you've been able to download your experience more. But as for now, what's the number one thing that you learned there that we're going to be applying here in Indiana?
I think it's just really leaning back into the building capacity in our AI ecosystem here is, and I look at what they're doing I mean, 15,000 people into a country that might be the size of Texas, right? I'm like, we got to do more, right? We're going to get passed up. So let's just keep leaning into there. I think we're doing the right thing. Let's just triple down.